And the guy slides over a check to me at the end of the table. It's me and my mom and Maverick Carter at the end of the table. And he says, if you don't go talk to any other companies, this is yours. And I look at it. $10 million fucking dollars.
Oh,
10 million.
Just right there as an 18-year-old, I was still stealing change out of my dad's.
Nike just went bankrupt, and the reason starts with an FBI raid on LeBron James' $500 million mansion. This isn't on the media yet. Nobody is talking about what really happened behind those gates. One knock on that door didn't just end a friendship, it triggered a financial collapse worth billions. A deal built over 2 decades, destroyed in a single morning in 2025. And the scariest part, LeBron saw it coming. He just never thought Nike would burn with him. This is the story they don't want you to know. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, because to understand how something this massive falls apart, you have to understand just how massive it actually was. We're not talking about a regular sneaker deal. We're not talking about a guy who gets a check to wear some shoes and post on Instagram. What LeBron James built with Nike was something the sports world had never seen before. It was an ecosystem, a living, breathing financial universe where one man's brand was so deeply fused with one company's identity that when one moved, the other one followed. Always. Picture this. A $500 million mansion sitting in one of the most exclusive zip codes in the country, security cameras on every corner, private gates, a driveway longer than most city blocks. Inside, every room tells a story of what happens when generational talent meets generational ambition. Art on the walls, a full basketball court, a movie theater, a wine collection worth more than most people's homes. This wasn't just where LeBron lived, this was a monument to everything he had built. And in 2025, everything inside those gates was about to be questioned.
You know, me entering into a lifetime deal with such a great company like Nike, and for them taking a chance, I just think back for them taking a chance on a 17-year-old skinny kid from Akron, Ohio. I always told myself, you know, Brian, let's try to figure out a way to put this city on the map, and hopefully I'll continue to make this city proud.
He then acknowledges where he's standing.
There's no other place that I can do this video or do this to you guys than being in one.
You have to understand the scale of what LeBron James became before you can understand why this story is so devastating. This man didn't just become a basketball player, he became a brand. He became a financial institution with a heartbeat. From the moment he stepped into the league as a teenager, companies were lining up to attach their name to his. But Nike was different. Nike didn't just want to sponsor LeBron, they wanted to own a piece of history with him. And for a long time, that bet paid off in ways that made Wall Street analysts lose their minds. The mansion, let's talk about it, because when FBI agents pulled up to those gates in early 2025, they weren't walking into just a house, they were walking into a symbol, a physical representation of what a billion-dollar partnership looks like when it's working. The property had been appraised, valued, discussed in financial circles as one of the most significant celebrity-owned real estate assets in the entire country. $500 million of stone, glass, and legacy sitting on manicured grounds. And then the black SUVs pulled up. Stay with me, because what happened next is something you genuinely won't believe.
And I think like the alarm bells start to go off.
Then the dominoes started to fall. Big-time athletes left Nike for its competitors. Roger Federer signed with On. Harry Kane went to Skechers. Simone Biles to Athleta, and Josh Allen to New Balance. Tiger Woods left to start his own brand. Then Nike changed its ads. It turned its signature aggressive tone more whimsical.
The future is exciting because you never know what's going to happen.
Reframed its message from win at all costs to just try your best.
Here's going for it.
To understand why the FBI showing up at LeBron's door could shake Nike to its financial core, you need to understand just how intertwined these two entities had become. LeBron's deal with Nike wasn't structured like a normal athlete endorsement. It wasn't, here's your check, wear the shoes, smile for the camera. This was a lifetime deal. a partnership structure that financial insiders described in 2025 as one of the most complex celebrity brand agreements ever put on paper. The numbers floated around the business world were staggering. Some estimates put the total value of the relationship, including royalties, licensing, equity-adjacent arrangements, well north of $1 billion over its lifetime. Think about what that means. Nike had essentially said, this one man, his name, his image, his legacy, is worth more to us than entire product lines, more than marketing campaigns, more than celebrity rosters filled with dozens of other athletes. They went all in, double down, triple down. LeBron's signature shoe line wasn't just selling sneakers, it was generating cultural moments. Every new release was a news event, every colorway was a conversation. Kids were camping outside stores at 2 in the morning, not because they needed shoes, they needed to be part of whatever LeBron represented. And Nike rode that wave all the way to the top. By early 2025, analysts were pointing to the LeBron line as one of Nike's most consistent revenue engines. Even as the broader sneaker market fluctuated, even as competitors started eating into Nike's market share, the LeBron brand held. It was the anchor, the thing that kept investors calm during turbulent quarters. So when something threatened that anchor, everything connected to it started sinking too. March 2025, early morning, the kind of quiet that only exists before something catastrophic happens. Sources close to the situation, and again, this is not being reported anywhere mainstream right now, describe the scene as organized, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Federal agents arrived at the property before most of Los Angeles had even had their first cup of coffee. Multiple vehicles, badges, a warrant that had reportedly been in the works for months. What were they looking for? According to people familiar with the investigation, the raid centered around financial irregularities connected to a series of shell companies. Now here's where it gets complicated, and where Nike gets pulled into the story in a way that changes everything. These weren't just companies attached to LeBron's personal business ventures. The financial threads reportedly ran through licensing structures that were directly connected to how Nike processed and distributed royalty payments inside their partnership agreement. We're talking about money moving through multiple layers of corporate entities, some domestic, some offshore, in patterns that flagged serious red flags for federal investigators. To be clear, investigators weren't necessarily saying LeBron woke up one morning and decided to commit fraud. What they were looking at was whether people inside his financial circle and people inside Nike's own internal structures had been manipulating the way money flowed through this partnership over a period of years. But here's the thing about federal investigations. It doesn't matter if you're the architect of the scheme or just the name on the building. When the FBI shows up at your door, the entire world starts asking questions. And in 2025, with social media moving at the speed of light, questions became speculation, and speculation became headlines, and headlines became panic. Nike's board of directors reportedly held an emergency meeting within 48 hours of the raid, not because they were guilty, not because they were ready to admit anything, but because they absolutely knew that what happened behind those gates that morning was going to be very, very bad for business. And they were right. Can you imagine being a Nike executive sitting in that boardroom, watching the news cycle start to turn, watching your stock price twitch, knowing that the one name your entire brand strategy had been built around was now the subject of a federal investigation? That's not a business problem. That's an existential crisis. Here's something most people don't understand about how the stock market works when it comes to celebrity-driven brands. It's not just about revenue, it's about confidence. It's about the story investors are telling themselves about your future. And for years, the story Nike was telling, the story investors bought into, was that LeBron James was an unshakable foundation, a guaranteed return, a blue-chip human being. The raid changed that story overnight. Within days of the news beginning to quietly circulate in financial circles, remember, this wasn't splashed across every front page immediately, Nike's stock began to move in the wrong direction. Not a crash, not yet, but a slow, uncomfortable bleed that sent chills through every floor of Nike's headquarters. Investors started making calls, asking questions, the kind of questions that don't have good answers when a federal investigation is sitting in the middle of the conversation. How exposed is Nike? How deeply are their financials tied to this partnership structure? What happens to the LeBron line if charges get filed? What happens to 20-plus years of brand equity if this gets ugly? And here's the thing, Nike's own internal audit process, triggered by the federal investigation, started turning up things that made those questions even harder to answer comfortably. Not necessarily criminal things, but accounting inconsistencies, licensing arrangements that had been structured in ways that, in the bright light of a federal investigation, looked sloppy at best and intentional at worst. The board started bleeding members. 2 senior executives connected to the partnership division quietly announced they were stepping down to pursue other opportunities. That's corporate speak for, "We are getting out before the roof collapses." By mid-2025, Nike wasn't just dealing with a PR problem, they were dealing with a structural financial crisis that had been hiding under the surface for years, and the weight of the LeBron investigation had finally cracked the foundation. Wait, because the next part is where this story goes somewhere nobody saw coming.
Nobody expected bankruptcy. That's the truth. Even the most pessimistic analysts, the ones who had been quietly raising concerns about Nike's over-reliance on a single athlete's brand equity for years, even they didn't see it going this far, this fast. But that's what happens when a crisis doesn't just attack your revenue, it attacks your story. And by the summer of 2025, Nike's story was broken. The formal bankruptcy protection filing sent shockwaves through the sports business world that are still being felt. Decades of dominance, swooshes on jerseys, shoes, equipment across every sport on the planet, a brand so embedded in athletic culture that it felt permanent, untouchable. And now, restructuring, debt negotiations, creditors at the table, a company that once defined cool, scrambling to figure out how to survive. LeBron's camp went silent. No statements, no Instagram posts, no carefully worded notes from his representation. The mansion, that magnificent symbolic $500 million estate, sat behind its gates like a fortress that had lost its army. Fans who had tattooed that swoosh alongside LeBron's number on their arms were sitting at home genuinely not knowing how to process what they were watching. Social media, predictably, exploded. Some people called it a takedown, a coordinated attack on a black billionaire by institutions that couldn't stomach his level of success. Others said, there's no smoke without fire. How do you have a federal raid on that scale without something real being underneath it? Former business associates started appearing in comment sections, anonymous accounts claiming insider knowledge, the kind of digital chaos that makes an already complicated story nearly impossible to follow without someone cutting through the noise. The most heartbreaking reactions came from the sneaker community, kids who had grown up saving birthday money for LeBron releases, parents who had bought those shoes for their children as a statement. Look, this man looks like us and he's on top of the world. The cultural weight of what was unraveling hit those communities in a way that went far beyond business news. This wasn't just about a company filing for bankruptcy protection. This was about what that company represented, what that partnership represented. And watching it collapse felt, to a lot of people, like losing something that was never supposed to be losable. So, here we are. And I want to ask you something genuinely, because I think this is the most important question sitting inside this entire story. Is LeBron James a victim of the system that built him, or is he the reason the system broke? Think about it carefully before you answer, because both things can exist at the same time. On one hand, you have a man who came from nothing, literally nothing, a kid from Akron who turned talent and will into a financial empire that changed the way we think about athlete branding forever. That story is real. That achievement is real. The fact that he built generational wealth and opened doors for athletes who came after him, that's not erased by an FBI investigation. But on the other hand, and this is the uncomfortable part, you cannot build a structure worth billions of dollars and then claim no knowledge of how the foundation was laid. At some level, the people around you, the decisions made in your name, the money moving through companies attached to your identity, at some level, you are responsible for understanding those systems. And maybe that's the real lesson sitting underneath all of this. Not about LeBron specifically, not about Nike specifically, but about what happens when we allow any single human being to become so central to a financial ecosystem that their personal legal problems can trigger a corporate bankruptcy. When one man's front door getting knocked on by federal agents can erase decades of brand equity and send shockwaves through thousands of employees who never had anything to do with any of this, that's a design flaw in business, in how we construct celebrity empires, and how we let the idea of one person become worth more than the institutional health of the companies built around them. Nike bet everything on a name, and in 2025, that bet came due in the worst possible way. Here's what I'll leave you with. This story isn't over, not even close. Federal investigations take time, bankruptcy proceedings take time, and LeBron James has proven more than once in his career that writing him off is the last mistake you want to make. But the world is watching, and the question, the one that's going to follow both LeBron and the wreckage of this Nike partnership for years, is a simple one. When you build an empire, who's really in charge of protecting it? The king, or the people he trusted to manage the kingdom while he was playing the game? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think LeBron walks away from this clean? Or is this the beginning of the end of the most powerful athlete-brand partnership in sports history? I want to hear exactly where you stand. And if this video had you locked in from start to finish, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, because the stories we're bringing you, the ones nobody else is covering yet, they're just getting started.